Well, hello and welcome to the WWW, the Weekly Wellness Wednesday. I'm Robert Arthur here in beautiful Granbury, Texas, and my co-host with the mostest up in St. George.
Mr. Jim Rose, excited to be on this call today. This is going to be one of the funnest ones because we wouldn't even be here if it wasn't for this man and his insight into the future of what it was to create something like this for us to have a platform to bless our lives and a lot of other people's also.
Well said, Jim. And there's a phrase I want to just go ahead and put it out there. You're going to hear it a number of times this evening is force for good. And I want to invite you watching this, think about that. What does that mean to you? Any visual picture around that? Is there emotion attached to that? What would it feel like to be a global force for good, or just in your community, just in your own household? So just be thinking about that. So before we go there, Jim, do we have some beautiful, ever-growing, do we have this beautiful library of heart-centered people that we've brought to the table here?
Yes, over the last 6 months. And what's really neat is that you've kept those on file so people can go back and meet so many different personalities coming from different places of health journey, of wellness journey, of mental journey, and what this has meant for them as they were real and raw, because this is not scripted. We're just sitting here. And, I want to also acknowledge, as you always do so well, the real important VIPs on this call happen to be the ones that are looking at us right now. Yes, that's you. And that's a fist bump from me. Thank you for investing your time right now with us to gain information that can help you make your decisions that may help improve your health. In fact, I know they will, having experienced it over the past year.
Well said. So thanks for showing up, doing what the majority of human beings simply don't do on a regular basis, is simply show up and learn with an open heart. So our special guest tonight, I met this gentleman, seemed like it's been 10 years ago now, or seemed like it's been way back yonder, but it was just a few months ago. And I myself aligned with this community. If you're watching this live or recording, this community, we're coming together because of a young wellness company with a big, bold vision out of St. George named Zalevo, which is Latin, helping you reach the highest potential, helping you achieve the highest potential, your life, your health, your giving back. And I've known Jim. Jim, you and I have known each other for almost 20 years now. I'm counting.
20, that's right. Maybe already into the 20th. Come to think of it, time goes fast when you're my age.
Look out. And you're such a whippersnapper. So Jim has been a spiritual and business mentor on many levels for me. And I obviously aligned with him. And then very early on, even when I was evaluating this, we set up a Zoom call with the gentleman who launched this community and this company, Brandon Broadwater. And we titled this a legacy. Legacy, I love that word, legacy of next level wellness, abundance, and then contribution. And Brandon, as I get to know you more, and you'll get to know this gentleman tonight on this call, you'll see that he just doesn't say those words. He actually lives those guidelines and those attributes and qualities. Founder and CEO of, again, originally HealthSync, now Zalevo. Definitely breakthrough international trainer for many years. He taught on stages across North America, internationally, impacting lives from small little groups to large groups to CEOs, Fortune 500 company, a wide level of individuals and leaders that he was impacting on a significant level with a company called Master Your Power Within. And we now have the opportunity to plug into some of those events now. If you're watching this, ask your person who invited you. Also, multimillionaire and their whole real estate journey. He worked a number of years with, many of you have heard of Robert Kiyosaki. He worked alongside him, kind of a mentoring journey there, learning. And then he went on to even at different levels and different directions as he grew his own businesses. And he reached a point where he simply wanted a vehicle for people could expeditiously accelerate their journey into abundance and giving back and contribution. And we're so grateful for that. He's a family man. He has Carter, Micah, Shay, Faith, and Canyon. Some beautiful names there. 5 kiddos. I say kiddos, Brandon, but the oldest one is how old now? Micah or Carter?
So Carter is 18 years old and currently been living in Africa for about 3 weeks, out on a service mission, giving of himself. And pretty cool thing for an 18-year-old to be doing at this time in his life.
He'll come, yes, with so many stories and so in love with those people because he's over there to serve them, which is a way to find his own heart and certainly see theirs.
Yes, absolutely. And we all say that a reflection of who the parents are, the kids reflect those, the values and the standards. So your kids are all about giving back. So thank you. And then you have, I met your wife a number of times, Jim, you have as well. Leslie is a sweetheart through and through, talking about a faith-based lady, strong woman, and a wonderful mom and servant leader as well. I'm sure all 3 of us could say we married up.
I'll tell Leslie, make sure that we keep our priorities in order in life. And I always love that she appreciates the fact that no success outside the home can compensate for a failure inside the home. So home is first, and having success and getting the right amount of time there is and memories is definitely a priority for us. I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for Leslie.
Wow.
Well said.
Well said. Same with my honey and joy, and Jim with Kathy. So I'd like to go back to that original statement, and we can dig a little deeper into what brings us all here. Brandon, my initial question is, what comes to mind in your heart, or what even vision or what visual do you have when you hear force for good?
That's a great question. And first of all, it's a pleasure being here with you guys and everybody else. It's an honor to be on this journey of making such an impact in the world and sharing the journey with you too. And Robert, you're incredible. I know you inspire so many people. You are their rock in so many ways. And Jim Rhodes, you as well. I can't even tell you what I heard about the 2 of you before I ever met you, based on what you've decided to do with your lives. So pleasure to spend some more time with you. And I love that we can serve together and we can also do some business, fun things together, and that we can be here today. So thanks for having me on the show. So to answer your question, force for good, the first thing that comes to my mind is an experience that I had years and years ago. And there's an individual I met, he wanted to change the world. And I remember he came up to me and he said, well, Brandon, why don't you tell me how to change the world? And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, I've heard about you. And I said, how have you heard about me? We just met, right? I'm mid-20s and we were in California at some resort doing some training. And he said, well, I've heard you've been all over the world. You've trained thousands and thousands of people. You've gone big, done all this stuff. I want to do that. How do I do that? And I said, well, start getting on phone calls and see what people want and help them have breakthroughs, right? Help them out, see what they need. And I asked him, what do you have to offer? He said to me, I don't have the time for individuals. Did you not hear me, Brandon? I want to change the world. He spoke very boldly, on the verge of being rude, right? He said, and I said to him, how are you going to change the world if you don't know what the one wants? If you're not willing to take time for the one, how's it all going to work? He's like, oh, I'll put big billboards up and, just drive a lot of traffic towards my website and people just come. And I said, I'm not sure that's going to work out for you. And he says, are you dodging the question, Brandon? And I'm like, and I'm just thinking to myself, like, man, I just met this guy, pretty aggressive. And at that point, I realized that his teachability level was quite low. And I also realized that he was missing a fundamental component of force for good. And I said to him, you'll never change the world or be a force for good until you learn how to change the world one person at a time. I said, the people who make waves in this world in the hearts and minds of men are those who know how to inspire the one. And by inspiring that one, it inspires many more. And so if you can take one person through a transformation, the rest will go, especially if you're in like a group setting type of thing. And so one of our, at Zalevo, we're all about mastery and reaching our highest potential. And we have these things that are called the core values. A lot of people don't know that they are the core values of mastery. And we have 12 core values, and these core values of mastery, the 12th core value, there you go. Yeah, you got them right there. The 12th core value is force for good. And it says, we inspire individuals to bring out their best. And we know the world changes one person at a time. And I always think about that story of that individual's unwillingness to spend time with the one. But I know that when I've had transformational experiences with a lot of people, or even myself, when I've heard certain stories, right? Sometimes there's ancient stories of ancient masters who have an interaction, and through those stories and parables of one person's change, it inspires all of us to change.
Someone has to lead the way, don't they? Yes, yes. Go ahead, Jim.
I was going to say that is profound. And the uniqueness is the one person he needed to start the change with was himself, because the words don't match up with attitudes. And if you don't have the alignment with your own attitude of the words that you're trying to teach someone else, they say, sorry, I can't hear what you're saying because of who you are and how your actions are showing. And I think that was one of the things that was most impressive when I met you approximately a year ago, Brandon, almost by accident, but at the same time by a divine nudge, to come in actually to be a little bit of service, because we're both here in the same city. And I had the ability to bring what I thought to you, something that could even improve some of your formulations that I had studied for the past 30 years and was so excited about, because I had seen what adding those two formulations could do for the company I ran once upon a time, and others. And come to find out, you're way ahead of that curve. You not only had those particular ingredients, you had 3 times from 3 different sources that literally blew me away. I had never seen anybody do that. And those particular ingredients were the ones that are the most often missing in anybody's formulations and in the food, particularly we buy from the grocery store. So you had my attention of what in the world have you created here? And then when I got to taste it, and it tasted wonderful. In fact, it tasted so much better than what I halfway expected. More interest, and then a comparison, and suddenly I was in trouble because I'd been with an incredible company for 18 years, had already created a legacy, and I had no interest in actually leaving. And now there was something presented, and as we met, literally something out of the ordinary. It was as if I had known you for years. And it felt like I was home with somebody that had something inside of them that I admire, that I want to obtain myself and hold. And turned out that here we are a year later in this grand adventure of what you've created. And I just appreciate you more than you know.
And that goes both ways, Jim. I appreciate you as well. I appreciate you and for all the effort you put into other people's lives and what you stand for. And you're right, we do. So Zalevo is a health and wellness company. For those of you who don't know, we have products that help to optimize our health and bring out the highest energy that we can have each day, because I'm a believer that to reach our dreams, it takes energy to reach our dreams. And that's one of the reasons why I'm here. I grew up with my grandpa walking me through his health food store and showing me as I was I still remember around 8 years old, I'd been there many times, but for some reason I remember going through and he was giving me a tour and explaining to me the different type of dietary supplements and why to take them and which ones are the best. And then we go through by the refrigerator and we look at the probiotics and he'd explain how that all works. And I could pull anything off any shelf in there and he would tell me what it would do, the ingredients. We could go into the back part of his store and they had the bulk big boxes and you open them up and there's a plastic bag and just herbs or different types of ingredients that you'd put together in a formulation for a product. It was incredible. And it's interesting because my grandpa is 100 years old as of a few months ago.
Wow.
And he is vibrant and still in his community where he lives right now. What he does every day and looks forward to the most is going out and helping people. And he goes and makes it part of his day to go and help people. He walks around and literally just helps people. And to be mobile and witty, he held up a newspaper for me about 5-6 years ago. I haven't given him the test recently, but he said, watch this. And he holds it out and it's a newspaper and he reads it line for line. He said 2010 vision. And he was doing things in the 1950s and 60s that people are now just catching on to today. He's been taking probiotics and some of the secrets that are in our ingredients today either are already here or are on their way in our product line.
Wow.
I don't know about you, but I want to be 100 years old and I want to be witty, very present in conversations. My gosh, he was playing tennis hardcore 8 years ago at 92. He could beat my sister, who's amazing. And that's one of the reasons I'm here is those health and wellness products that we provide help us to have that energy to not only reach our dreams, but specifically to reach our goals each day, to be present with our loved ones. Those are some of my dreams. Financial dreams were a thing when I was younger, to create that financial freedom, which happened. And I couldn't have done that without energy. And that's why I want to provide it to other people, because I saw so many people get stuck and hit these walls on their way in their journey, their dreams. And I'm all about removing obstacles and helping people get out of their own way. And that is one of the reasons why Zalebo is here today. And there's people breaking through those limitations every single day.
Yeah.
And
that number is growing, Brandon. So
absolutely.
We have a beautiful community. I've never asked you this question. So can I want to ask this question before we get into the rest of the call. I know you've touched on this before at some previous events when you were training and so forth. You mentioned that at one point we were all fasting, for example, at a retreat. And you said, oh my goodness, I wish I had this at some of my trainings. It would have been so much easier. So one of my questions, just to you personally, it's a twofold question. If you had the formulations we have now, how and what are a couple of ways and forms and ways where you see they could have helped you in the past? And the other question, have you ever had one or two maybe chapters or pages or a half page in your journey? You mentioned when your strength did ebb a bit and a role that nutrition or wellness played to kind of rebuild that again. I've never asked you that personal question, I guess, to be candid.
So I didn't understand the second question in a role that, let me answer the first one, then ask the second one again. So the products that we have today, the health and wellness products that we call formulations as well, these products, what they have and what we have today is what I wish existed 10 and 15 years ago. So the company Zalebo, the entity was formed in 2015. The first few years were research and development. And then our first product was released in 2018. And as science became better and more qualified brilliance came along, I spared no expense and I've upgraded the product line. But the entity of Zalebo started almost 8 years ago now. And it's exciting to see what has happened. I'm glad we took a few years in the research and development before our product release. You can see there's a 3-year span right there from 15 to 18. Yeah. But during that time, I was mixing, matching, buying the best money could buy. And what we have today is what it is because it's what I wanted to have before, but I had to mix and match other products and we still couldn't get to where it's at today. You literally have to go to the ends of the earth to find the best minerals, the highest quality protein, whey protein isolate in New Zealand. I mean, different components of this, the healthiest the sweetener that is not artificial, that has technology in it that I believe if it existed in the 1950s, that we would have an entirely different world of human health if some of the components that we have right now, being the first company, one of the first companies in the world to have some of this technology, if we had it a few decades ago, the world would be a different place as far as health. We wouldn't have the obesity. I mean, it's just, there's so much and so many things that come to mind when you ask me the question about if there is one or two products. Particularly, there is two products that I do love, and there's a product called Fortitude 85, and then our Ultra 30. Our Ultra 30 stands for 30 grams of protein. The quality of protein that is, and the minerals, you feel alive when you put it into your body. And there's a lot of people whose lives have changed just with that alone. But the Fortitude 85 is a, I'll just say this, I take it every day, and I forgot to take it a while ago. And I was in the office here, and I walked out the door. We're at corporate headquarters here in St. George. I can see Zion National Park right out the window. Beautiful view. There's red rocks out there. But I remember that day I walked into the hallways of the corporate headquarters, and it dawned on me I forgot to take my Fortitude 85, and it just came out of my mouth. I said, I just realized why I'm feeling human again. And it's because I forgot to take the Fortitude 85. And that's the best way to describe why I would love that experience every day, because it truly helps me to be a better businessman. It helps me to be more accessible, responsive, and engaged to the people I love, the team members I work with, because I can be present with them, because I have that, the mental fog is not there, the energy's there, it's a crisp mind. And all of that comes from giving your body what it needs.
Yeah, and you also, not everybody embraces this experience. You've mentioned several times how much clarity you get when you do an autophagy fast as well. Can you comment around that?
Sure. One of the unique things that, well, I'd invite everybody to go look this up if you don't know what it is. It's autophagy, and this is something that your body gets into when you do intermittent fasting. And the problem is for people to get into this autophagy, this state of where your body literally starts to optimize itself, and is the shortest version that I can say. In order to get there, you need to go without food. And when that happens for most individuals, there's some uncomfort that goes with it. One of Zalevo's claims to fame is that Zalevo's products allow you to get into autophagy without the white knuckle, terrible experience that a lot of people experience as they get into ketosis and autophagy. And by the way, ketosis is nothing compared to autophagy. We blow past ketosis into autophagy to get the real value out of what ketosis is capable of doing, as powerful as that is. So that's what Zalevo does, is you can go into this autophagy, you do it, we call them burn days, and you use a product called burn mode with this Fortitude 85 every 2 hours. And then you get into autophagy. And by the time you are done with a burn day or 2 days of burn, you've done it where you're comfortable. For me, you hit runner highs, you feel amazing. And the first time I did it, this was before the product was released. We were all testing it at corporate headquarters. I went back to the doctors and the labs team, and I just said, what is going on? Because I'm 45 years old right now. I feel like I'm 18. I have mental acuity that I feel like I am just in the prime of my life. And that's the power of autophagy. And that's what it does just to your mind, not to mention people that have lost weight, I think, and enhance their health in so many ways. So we could talk a lot about it, but that was my experience. And I love it. I love it. That energy, that clarity. And it's literally at a scientific level, allowing us to get out of our own way so we can step into each day to win.
Well, you're obviously, it's a beautiful thing to hear that the owner, founder, the catalyst for this company is a product of his own products. So Thank you. And if those watching this, yes, if you're wondering, well, he can make any of this up. I guess my transparent truth is, Brandon, I've seen you using the products. I've heard you reference different experiences numerous times. So it would be very hard for you to kind of act that role out when you're not living it. And then Leslie would also step in here and set us straight as well. So does your family, again, we're being raw and real now. Does your family, kids, are they kind of, Dad, this is your stuff, or do they actually embrace the nutrition?
Well, I would say that we go through so much Ultra 30 chocolate shake that I'm just glad I have a couple of cases in my house. And I will say this, my son's been in Africa for a few weeks, like I mentioned, and that's the first box that he requested was a shipment of a case of Ultra 30, because that nutrition does not exist where he's at over in Ghana on the west side of Africa. And he said, Dad, I can feel it. I can't eat enough to feel how I felt at home. And it's the real deal. We're very lucky to have the technology. It's very humbling when I do video calls with him and I see the environment that he's in. He's a valiant soul, but yet he's definitely in an environment that we don't experience in North America. And I feel great, even more grateful when I enjoy an Ultra 30 each day. And I don't mean to talk about products so quick, so soon in a environment like this, but you can't help share what you love.
Well, but also, Brandon, just a reminder, this context, we're live streaming to a wellness page, not a business page. So that's the whole context. This is a weekly Wellness Wednesday. So just a friendly reminder that that is the context of that being said, for those watching, we also want to take advantage, not advantage, but the privilege and the honor of having our founder here to ask even more other, maybe deeper, if you want to say, philosophical questions. But Brandon, I think Jim and I can relate to this. All of us can, if you're watching this too. I personally wanted to know more about your family and how you use, what does your wellness lifestyle look like for yourself personally, so.
Sure. So one of the things that Zalevo does, and one of our missions, is to help people reach their highest potential. We provide elite products. We help people break through limiting mindsets, and we help people to reach their highest potential. In order to do that, there's some things that need to happen, and we need to have the process and elements of success. And so if I want to answer the question, what do we do? There are reasons why people that are ripped and healthy, why they're there. There are reasons why millionaires are millionaires. They have elements and processes that they use and they go through. So they have elements they use and they have processes they go through that get them to these amazing results. And to answer your question, I think one of the reasons why we're so passionate about health and wellness is because I know what it's like to not have it. And I've seen a lot of friends who've had it a lot worse than I have when they don't have their health in alignment with who they really are and who they could be, and it's not optimized. And so part of the secret my grandpa taught me is to make sure that you have some good habits each day. So there's some things that I do to answer your question. What do we do? Each and every day, like right now, there's a sore spot on my body, and there's a reason for it. And I believe it's important to get that heart rate up. And I love doing strength training. Even more, I love bike riding and getting into the outdoors. And that's something I do on a consistent basis. It's part of my day, and it sets the mindset. So good habits are absolutely critical. They're absolutely critical. And in having a good mindset, getting out of our own way and unlocking limiting mindsets, there's some things we got to do. There's elements of managing our state, and the pillars of state, there's 3 of them, and those can help us to maximize not only our health, but if you know what they are, then, and you know that they're one of the 4 primary elements of mastery, As you manage your state, you're going to be able to do whatever you want with your life. So each and every day, I take steps to progress, enhance, prepare to make sure that I'm optimizing myself so I can be in my highest potential. Or another form of saying that is, as we do that consistently, we'll start to achieve mastery in our lives. But I didn't know how to do that when I was younger, Robert and Jim. My grandpa had to teach me the elements of mastery and a process of mastery so I could actually achieve the things that I want to achieve in life. I went to a lot of the same health trainings, financial trainings as many of my peers. And I have been able to achieve very different results than them. Not because I'm smarter. In fact, I think a lot of them were smarter than I was. And it's not because I had some lucky roll of the dice. I had a process and I know the elements of mastery and success. And when you know that, you can tackle life. Without it, life will tackle you. Financially, you either tackle the money or money tackles you. When you know the process and elements of mastery, then we can start to tackle the money in our lives. We don't have to be tackled by that. Contention, opportunity, right? How many times have we missed opportunity because we weren't in the right mindset? We gave into doubt or discouragement. One of the elements of mastery is our state management, and one of those four primary elements of mastery is critical, because once you know it and you live it, then you become unstoppable. I don't know if that answered your question, but there's a lot of things I do. I play tennis with my kids, right? I use positive words. We focus on the good. That's our family theme. That's part of state management. That's one of the pillars of having a good mental state, is you're not entertaining negative thoughts and doubts. I'm a person who believes in the hand of providence, is probably the most politically correct way of saying it these days. And I do believe that using language that is believing makes a difference. I sometimes challenge people to say, doubt your doubts, don't doubt your faith, or don't doubt your opportunities, right? So that's what I do each and every day. Is there's components of this to get my mind into the right place. So each day is amazing, and I can step into win because I'm ready for the day. Does that make sense?
Yeah, does make sense. Thank you, Brandon. Jim.
Yes, the two or three things that I would love to comment on is that you do what you're requesting your children to do. And so you lead by example and inspire, not require. And that is such a different environment for someone to step into. Then you recognize their greatness sometimes before they do, and acknowledge that to them, build that. No wonders you have achievers that are doing great, that you're raising. But also, I know a little bit about why you built this platform of Zalevo. When you did a training, you mentioned that you had done trainings all over and a lot of people attended, and that you shared the same information, and a few were able to go out and achieve greatness for themselves using the principles you taught. But many went back to their old environment without a vehicle to apply what you had taught. And you went back for your friends, the ones that you had met at these meetings, and back to your associates who said, how do I achieve what you have achieved? And said, I'll build something that will have that framework built into it, a platform that you can be around other people who want the same thing that you want. And your environment trumps everything else. And create an environment where everyone is lifted. And I think that is exactly what you've created with Zalevo. And you paint probably the best potential future to help people dream again and know that they can achieve the dreams, because you vividly vision cast. And people can see 6 months from now, a year from now, goals met through your help and their vision casting. And again, that's a sign of greatness when you come back for your friends and put together with your own money, which you didn't need other than to bless many others to do. And thank you for doing that for your friends, and now attracting many more friends like Robert and myself to join in that same journey of better health and better wealth.
Yeah, appreciate that, Jim. Appreciate that. You're right. There is a journey that we're all on in life. And one of the things that I learned from my grandpa was not only to take care of my health, but my grandpa was exemplary in creating financial wealth, creating trust and great memories and relationships. He traveled. He had a very abundant life, a rich and abundant life. He taught me how to get out of my own way. He taught me the elements that were needed to have success, how to be a servant leader, right? There's leadership and there's servant leadership, and those are two very different things. Servant leadership is a pinnacle of leadership that can only be achieved by those who care about the people and the cause. They have clarity of how to get people out of their own way, because that's what masters do. The truth shall set you free, but it's got to be delivered in such a way where people can be inspired and want to change. And honestly, the mastery in this world, you guys have said it, involves us being able to see the inherent good in others, to see the good that they can't see, and know that they are ultimately the heroes of their own story. It's a big deal. So in the process of transformation and getting to where we want to go, I had to realize that I had to learn some new things. I had to acquire some new knowledge and then implement those things. And there's no way I could have done it without a framework of a 3-step process of mastery and knowing the 4 elements of mastery that make it possible. Because if you don't know these things, then you're going to be stuck. And by the way, those are things we cover here at Zalevo in our trainings. We have a Master Your Power Within training when we'll cover these type of things. And I can't tell you how many people's lives have changed for the better, because it's not an intellectual experience getting results here on planet Earth alone. My grandpa taught me that you need to master that power that's inside of you. And once you know these elements and process, then you can do anything.
Wow. Well, I can't wait for that event. If you're watching this for the very first time, basically a week from this recording right now, we're all going to have an immersive experience. So we can't wait. We'll have to we should do a follow-up interview with the principles we've all learned and gained from the event. So one of my questions, and I've heard you answer this before, but the listeners, I really want them to hear this. What do you feel are, a couple of what you would call your primary God-given strengths that are really serving Zalevo, this community, this company, well, in your role as the role that you are, founder, CEO? What does that look like?
That's a great question. I think there's your question is, what are strengths that I bring that make a difference in making what's possible today? Is that another way of saying what you're asking?
Yes. And how it pertains to what difference is it making here in Zalevo?
Perfect. Yeah. Well, I'll be the first one to say it. And I recognize that I stand on the shoulders of other great ones who taught me. And I'm a believer, because it's my experience, that let's just talk financially. When I first became a millionaire before I was 30, I was able to do that because somebody showed me how. And it wasn't just a transactional intellectual show how. If it wasn't for my grandfather, who had made millions, that showed me the key, the 3 particular elements that are needed to do so, then I wouldn't have had the energy to do it. We've talked a little bit about that today. I wouldn't have understood that there has to be a rich and abundant financial vehicle to accomplish something like that financially. You cannot do it in a middle-class mindset, in a middle-class income, at least for 98% of those individuals. It's not the right system to create that type of income. But what my grandpa taught me was something that was really the secret. Is I remember when my wife and I achieved financial freedom for our first time. I'm in my late 20s, and we went on this trip, and I remember her asking me, when do you want to go home? And I said, well, I don't know. When do you want to go home? And she said, well, we're making just as much money here, so why not stay? And it was interesting, but that is, as you referenced, Jim, when I realized, as that conversation dwindled and she went back inside, and I'm looking over this beautiful vista on a vacation that I never had to go home from. Granted, we made it 4 days, we made it home, right? But because it gets old, right? You want to go do things with your life that is not just play, which is making a difference in people's lives. And so that's where I made the decision to really dedicate my life to something greater. And I pondered, why me? Why am I in this position? I know I'm not different. I know I'm not smarter. And I thought, I was in the same trainings as other individuals learning the exact same thing. Why did I get results and they didn't? And I know that it's 1, 2, or 3 out of 100 that make it in a lot of, if you could take 100 people and train them on the same thing with health or financials, there's only going to be 2 or 3 that ended up selling through there generally. However, as I pondered why it was me, I realized where the strength was, to answer your question, Robert. And the strength was something that my grandpa gave me. And I knew I was standing on his shoulders, and I still do today. And he showed me how, or the elements of mastery, there's 4 of them, how to master my power within. And that way I could operationalize the financial knowledge, the health knowledge, and actually embed them into my life. And that creates results. And it's, once you know the elements of mastery, then when you have something, you apply those elements, which become the attributes of you with time, and those elements and attributes become a part of you. And then you can get any result that you want. And so the strength that I bring is what my grandpa taught me, is the elements of mastery. But it's not just that. The second thing is, I know the process of mastery. And there's a 3-step process to mastering anything. And that makes all the difference. And the other thing I knew was this is the third thing. So if there's 2 or 3 things, it would be this. I knew where I was at. So I'm going to draw right here. Make sure you can see that, if you can see that.
Yeah.
And I knew where I was at in this thing called the Prosperity Quadrant. My grandpa taught me that these are the 4 worlds of money. You have the poor, you have the middle class, you have the rich, and you have the abundant. And if you want to know what my advantage was, is I had an advantage to know where my liabilities were. I knew where my blind spots were. And let me explain. So these, let me move this light a little bit. There you go. So these are the 4 worlds of money that my grandpa taught me about. And in this prosperity quadrant, you have the poor, middle class, rich, and abundant. The poor are the individuals who are in survival financially, but this isn't just a money quadrant. This is a prosperity quadrant. So if we can think about our relationships, this can relate to relationships. You can have a poor relationship. You can have a middle of the road relationship. You can have a rich relationship, good technique, no heart. And then you can have abundant relationship, which represents love and bonds and happiness. Financially, the poor are in survival mode. The middle class, oh, sorry about that. So the middle class, there's nothing wrong with being the middle class. They're the backbone of our economy, right?
Yeah.
However, my grandpa taught me, and this is one of the advantages that I believe is a strength, is that the middle class struggle financially because the only way they know how to make income is through an exchange of time generally. And so generally it's an exchange of time. There's nothing wrong with that. And then the rich, of course, they understand that business, systems of business is how you can make money while you're sleeping. And then this abundant quadrant represents the things that money cannot buy. So when my grandpa showed me these 4 worlds, I had an unfair advantage because I could identify where I was at. I knew I wanted the things that money couldn't buy. The bonds, impact, making a contribution, making the world a better place, right? So right now I have a 501c3 charity called Zalevo Charity. We go help kids in Mexico, and Costa Rica is where we went a few months ago. And that giving back is an abundant part of my life. Having 5 kids, having my son in Africa giving of himself and calling us up and telling us how he's talked with people with all his heart. You want to know what he said? He said, Dad, people give up their eternal progression with the simple phrase, I'll do it tomorrow. That's what he said. He's 18. He says, I watch people right before me give up their eternal possibilities of what they could do with the mindset, I'll do it tomorrow. That, my friends, is a poor mindset. The I'll do it tomorrow, the later game means the never. So my journey in creating the success that I've had has been a transformation to greatness. And this arrow represents a transition to greatness. But the reason why I say this is a strength is because in order to progress, we need to know where we're at. And as a young man in my teen years and in my 20s, I mean, I grew up on food stamps. And then I remember when my mom graduated from college, we went into the middle class. She got her master's degree and boom, things changed. I was a kid and I learned like money does something. I'm living in a better place. We have great food now. But I also remember that my mom and my dad, they taught me how to fight. I watched my mom work hard. My dad passed away from a disease and he was a fighter. He taught me how to fight. But this middle class thing is a really interesting place because this is a place where I got stuck. I graduated in radiology and I still remember what it was like working at the hospital, telling myself money wasn't important. But yet I kept getting tackled by these financial situations in my life. And then I'd be stressed out about money. And then I watched other people who were getting killed with financial markets going up and down and inflation's eating up their retirement. And so I remember thinking in this middle class, I said, why don't I just admit to myself that money is important? Because I'm spending most of my time working for money. And the question is, how do you know where a person's priorities are if you don't know them very well, or if you do know them very well? And it's where they spend their time.
Right.
In the middle class, I used to be there. There's nothing wrong with it. I'm not judging. I look at this quadrant with so much empathy because I was so stuck and I wish somebody just showed me. And this middle class, I had to acknowledge that I tell myself that money's not important, but yet I spend most of my time, prime time, most awake, alert hours working for it. So there was a time when I decided that money was important. It sure helped when I couldn't go see a loved one. I couldn't buy a plane ticket. And I realized if I had the money, I'd be with them, but I didn't. And I thought money's going to hold me back from love. And it did, because I didn't have it. And I made the determination that money would never tackle me again. And I started to learn about this rich quadrant. I had my grandpa, learned from several other millionaires. My grandpa was one of them that taught me, he was the most influential one, that taught me how to create the elements of business so you can get it right the first time. And that's what I'm doing today is sharing with people what my grandpa taught me, so that whoever else wants to come and make this transition to be rich and abundant, then there's a path. And it's a path that is designed to be 5 to 10 times faster than any other path that you could possibly take, because I've spent the last 20 years removing barriers for you, for my friends being classified or defined as those who want something better. They're not willing to settle. They want the richer and abundant life. And I'm not saying that money has to be the most important thing. My grandpa told me, you have to choose. Do you want to be poor and abundant, middle class and abundant, or rich and abundant? I said, well, if I get the choice, I want to be rich and abundant. But Carter out in Africa right now, he is with people who are happy, very, very happy, and have nothing. And that is an option for all of us if we choose. I've made the choice to be rich and abundant because I don't want to spend my time sustaining myself. I don't have to be here today for money. I have businesses that do that outside of Zalevo, before Zalevo was even formed. And so that has allowed me to go into a contribution space where I can spend my time giving instead of sustaining myself. And I think that's an important distinction. So Robert, it's a strength to know about the prosperity quadrant because it helps us to know where we're at. It's a strength to know that the middle class world has a gravitational effect. And if you go talk like this with other middle class individuals, they'll say that you're dreaming. and they'll turn into naysayers, and they don't mean to. They're just concerned about you, and they think that what the rich do is risky. Oh, well, 9 out of 10 businesses fail. Yeah, if you're a middle-class person that doesn't have a rich and abundant person showing you how to do it, right? If you just go wing it and try to do it with this mindset over here, but with some training and knowing the elements of mastery and the process of mastery, which you get here at Zalevo at the Master Your Power Within event, then you can get it right the first time. So I believe those are the strengths.
Yes. And we see those, that they are self-evident because you're living them and teaching them. And we're all, again, now we're living them and teaching them. So, and they're timeless, aren't they? They aren't something that you made up or even your mentors made up. This is timeless principles, isn't it, Brandon?
If we were going to talk 100 years from now, there's nothing that would change. I don't need to modernize what's going on here.
Yeah. And, yeah, go ahead, Jim.
I was going to say that they're almost eternal principles.
Timeless, eternal.
They're timeless for sure. And the proof of the pudding is that they've been used by all of those who have been successful in each of those quadrants, or stuck in each of the quadrants, whichever one they were in. The uniqueness is you don't know what you don't know until you're exposed to it. And that's the next thing that is so incredible about our personal growth with this company, because we get exposed to something that we may have given up on, which was our dreams. And without a dream, none of them will come true. With a dream, at least, and now a way to achieve it, yes, those things can happen physically for our physical body, as well as spiritually and financially.
And we see that every day. And here's something that's unique too about this. Many people who love our culture, love personal growth, maybe the timing isn't right. They don't see this vehicle fits them, and that's okay. You know, there's plenty of room here to come in, use some incredibly high octane fuel, food, and then grow yourself, grow in your relationships with your family, with your, if you have your faith, whatever that looks like. So if you choose to grab hold of the financial vehicle, yes, we're going to welcome you. If you choose not to and just grow, or if you choose not to grow or grab the financial vehicle and just feed your body, that's fine too. Anyway, isn't it funny, Brandon? We could use the same, I say interesting, not funny, but we could use the same, I'm just thinking of that from a wellness perspective. It could be poor mindset around wellness and movement. It could be, the M could be masses, do what the masses do when it comes to wellness, not a whole lot. And then, you know, you could be rich in your practice there with nutrition and moving your body, and then abundant. So you could apply it to almost any type of environment or parameter, couldn't you?
You could have some really rich technique, but without the wholeness of wealth, with the right intent and going about it in alignment. This could also mean alignment to correct principles, where what happens if you try to optimize your health by moving and exercising your body alone, and you don't take care of nutrition.
Wow.
Right. There's an alignment to what's the principles really are of health. So yeah, it fits with everything in our lives.
Yeah, well said. And so we have to wind this up, but we could keep chatting on up for hours. We will next week. So Jim mentioned already, you're very masterful at vision casting a vision. So again, in the big scope of things, we're still a very young company, obviously, still, you know, everything's coming together really still. And so where are we headed as a community, as a company, even as these incredible formulations? What's ahead of us?
Well, it's a great question. So we are in an industry of direct sales, and our competitors are billion-dollar companies and multi-billion-dollar companies. And I believe that anybody involved with Zalevo, all ships will rise with the waters of Zalevo, and that's the intent. It was built for that. This isn't designed with a cash grab of executives, and these type of companies get really big really fast. And imagine if you look at some other companies that are notorious for their household names, what if you were there in their early stages, right? We launched our product line, initial product line in 2018. We're several years into this. We've gone through the vast majority of growing pains that are required to establish the foundations of companies like this so that you're scalable and you hold tight as things scale. And imagine if you were part of one of those companies in their first couple of years, if you were there for the first couple of years of their product launch, and all you got to do is look at people who were there and where they're at today. And these are individuals who have wealth beyond their wildest dreams. They're far surpassed what they thought they could do. But it wasn't given. It wasn't something that was just given for free. It's when they decided to align with something that they felt inspired and aligned to their own personal mission and vision in life. And a lot of people find that their relationship and involvement with Zalevo is one of their most joyous personal experiences, social experiences. Personal because it's in alignment with who they really are. They can make a difference in people's lives and serve, and it's legitimate, and there's integrity, and people feel like they have that. Socially, they find they're people that are striving for greatness here, and that helps everybody be better when we're hanging out with people striving to get to their next level. And financially, we have the real deal. We know there is a business opportunity along with the products that provides a vehicle to create this. R also stands for residual income. Mm-hmm. And I can't imagine, I was just talking to my mom, and she was a social worker, she's been retired for over a decade now, and she has residual income coming in. Her income is going up and up and up in these times of inflation because she has decided to be on the right-hand side of this quadrant, where the people on the left-hand side of the quadrant are getting killed right now. And it breaks my heart to watch it happen, because I spent the last decade training on all this, more than a decade, almost 2 decades, training on this. And the people who doubted their doubts and stayed in their comfort zones, I told them they would get wiped out with inflation. Audiences all over the world, mainly in North America. We sent products all over the world, but internationally, I told them and drew flip charts and spent hours making the case that if we don't shift this mindset, then you are going to get tackled by the money. And so, but we can't do it if we don't optimize our health. And that's why we have the products, right? If we don't get into autophagy, we're going to have that fog brain, and we just won't have the clarity, and we have a tendency to not reach as high as we can each day. And so, does that answer your question, Robert?
Very much so. And I want to remind those watching, there's on a previous call, Jim and myself asked Brandon the question. You could have chose any product or service to launch this vehicle, and you said wellness because everything takes energy. I know you touched on this several times, and that was a beautiful answer, because everything takes energy, even a rich relationship and all of our aspects. So Brandon,
if I didn't take in those late night, real quick comment, Robert, my son is the amazing, all my kids are, but talking about Carter, since we mentioned him several times in Africa, he is who he is today because I believe some of those late night conversations when you got nothing left as a parent, you got young kids, I'm running businesses, I make sure I get a date night every week with my wife without fail. I've done it since we've been married for over 20 years. Where's the energy when you're waking up at 4 or 5 a.m. to have a teenager that wants to talk only at 11:30 p.m.? We have got to have our energy dialed in, or else we are not capable of doing that. And I wouldn't be able to do that consistently, but when I did, I did. And for some reason, he remembers those nights. And those were the nights that helped propel him to be where he's at today, according to the talk that he gave right before he left. And these things he kept talking about that were life changers. I'm like, that was that late night. Like I didn't know that had such an impact. So yes, energy makes all the difference, because our children are going to be different human beings if we learn how to manage our own, I'll say it, our own freaking state. If we can manage ourselves and optimize our health and energy, it changes the outcome and trajectory of those in our own home.
Yes, and we are providing ways and means to do that on so many levels. So if you're watching this, again, we express our respect, because you are showing up and you're honoring your time by learning about this and and finding a way to connect to our mission and values. Brandon, I'm so grateful, and I'm so, I pray about it, I meditate, and I live in gratitude for this community, for you, for your vision, your leadership, and I look forward to learning more and more as the months and the years go by over the next few decades as we impact this planet. So, Jim, closing thoughts as well.
I will just echo what you just said, Brandon. Thank you for vision casting. And even with the good company I was with before, I had lost the sheen on the dream. And what you've brought to the table is that dream is very much alive. Again, you've helped me to start dreaming again, knowing that it is possible from all my experiences in the past. Now is the time to make it true. And I see it with and through your eyes that greatness is just up ahead. Just keep doing the do, and it will be true.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you. And I'll share some parting thoughts. I'm a believer that we either tackle life or life will tackle us. And the vision here in a summarized version is this: why not tackle the money? By my mid-20s, I was so tired of getting tackled over and over, I was done. I'm like, let's figure this out and be done. Let's tackle it. Why not learn how to get the bonds of relationships and how they work? How can I help influence others and have impact in others? And why not spend my time doing that? If you're to cast a vision, if you want to have the residual income and the freedom that can come from that, and also the abundance that comes by serving and sharing and uplifting others, and to be at your best health, wealth, and happiness, it requires that we get out of our own way. And there's a sacrifice. Yes, we're going to have to give up our pleasures and give up our distractions. But the dream here, the vision, is that we will get, this is my life. I have got everything I wanted and so much more, way beyond what I thought richness was when I started this. The richness and abundance that I have today far exceeds what I ever thought. So I am saying the vision here is that what you think is good is nothing when you get into an environment that people are striving to become rich and abundant in a healthy, happy, prosperous, masterful way. Because at the end of the day, what's going to be left, it's not about the money. It's going to be about you and the impact that we've made. And if you want your best you to come out of this life, then choose your environments wisely and choose environments where people are shooting for greatness. And that's what we're doing here. And don't be surprised if your bank accounts are full of them, but that's not what it's about. By the time you get that, it won't matter anymore because you've got it, right? And that's what's going to happen here. But I also have tons of empathy because I don't forget what the struggle has been like. And I'm not perfect, and it's not like I have a perfect life today, but I know how to get through my struggles each and every day quickly, valiantly, and enjoy each day in the midst of honestly putting out fires a lot of times. Like we all have fires to put out, right? And challenges, but there's a way to go through life that's almost like with the Midas touch. And why life is hard enough. The last thing I want to do is go back to being broke going through it, right? Life is hard enough. The last thing I want to do is go do it without optimized health. Life is hard enough. The last thing I want to do is go through it when I'm not bonded with my wife and my family and my friends, because we all know what kind of days those turn out to be when we're trying to put on a happy face, but we're not. Let's figure it out. Let's step into our best, and let's go step into win each day. That's the vision here.
Well, and we're living it. All right, guys, we're going to do Force for Good. Here we go. 1, 2, 3.
Force for good.
Love and light. Thank you, Brandon. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you,
Robert.
Pleasure being here.
Always. You're awesome. Thank you.
You guys are great.
Thanks, everybody watching this. Thank you, guys. God bless.